Hello and welcome back to the English Hour. I'm your host, Sophia, and today we have a very special guest. Jacob is here with us again. How are you today, Jacob?
Hey Sophia, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. It's always a pleasure to be back on the show. How about you?
I'm doing really well, thank you. I'm so excited for today's episode, because I thought we could explore some fun and unexpected topics. Stories from childhood. Some what if questions, maybe even dive into some random facts.
That sounds perfect. You know I love a good story and a deep conversation. Where should we start?
Let's begin with something light. Tell me about a moment from your childhood that you think shaped who you are today.
Oh wow, that's a big one to start with, okay? Let me think. All right. I remember when I was about 9 years old, I tried to build a treehouse all by myself. No adult help, just some wood I found in the garage and a hammer I probably wasn't supposed to use.
That sounds both brave and slightly dangerous. What happened?
Well, I climbed up the tree, nailed some boards together in the most awkward way possible, and after a full day's work, I had something. I wouldn't call it a treehouse, but it was definitely a wobbly platform. The next morning, it collapsed.
Oh no, were you okay?
Physically, yes, emotionally. I was devastated. But that moment really taught me something about persistence and learning from mistakes. Plus, it sparked my love for building things just with better planning next time.
That's such a sweet story. And honestly, I think we all have those early attempts at something big. For me, I once tried to make my own magazine when I was 12. I wrote all the articles, drew the pictures, even created fake ads.
No way, that's so cool. What did you call it?
Star Girl Weekly. I only made 2 issues, but I was so proud of them. I printed them on my dad's office printer and gave copies to my neighbors.
I love that. You were a real entrepreneur. Do you still have copies?
I wish. I think my mom might have saved one somewhere. Maybe I should dig it up and post a throwback.
You totally should. It's amazing how those creative sparks we have as kids often stay with us, even if we take different paths.
Absolutely. Speaking of creativity, let's shift gears a little. I have a game for us. I'll ask you a random, what if, question, and you have to answer as creatively as you can. Then you can ask me one. Sound good?
I'm all in. Let's do it.
Alright. First one. What if you could instantly become an expert in any skill in the world, but you had to give up one of your current skills to gain it? What skill would you give up, and what would you choose?
Oh, tough question. I think I'd give up my ability to cook, don't get me wrong. I love cooking, but I'd trade it to become fluent in every language on earth.
Whoa, that's an epic trade. Think of all the people you could connect with, the cultures you could experience on a deeper level.
Exactly. I'd love to travel and truly communicate with everyone, not just rely on English or a translator app. All right, your turn. What if you woke up one day and discovered you could talk to animals, but no one else could? What would you do?
Oh wow, I'd be thrilled. I'd probably start by talking to birds. I feel like they've got a lot to say. Then I'd write a book titled Conversations with the Wild.
I'd definitely read that. Would you tell people you could do it or keep it a secret?
I think I'd keep it a secret at first. I mean, imagine the chaos if people knew I could understand their pets.
True, every dog owner would want answers. Why is he barking at 3 a.m.?
Exactly. Okay. Next topic, let's go into something deeper. What's a belief you had 10 years ago that has completely changed today?
Ooh, we're diving in now. I used to believe that success meant always being busy. Like if you weren't hustling nonstop, you weren't doing enough.
That's such a common mindset, especially with how social media glorifies being overworked.
Right? But over time, I learned that rest is not a reward, it's a necessity. Now I try to measure success not just by output, but by how fulfilled and balanced I feel.
That's powerful, Jacob. I can relate. I used to think that asking for help was a sign of weakness. Now I see it as a strength.
Absolutely. Being vulnerable enough to ask for support actually builds stronger connections too.
Couldn't agree more. Now, here's a lighter one again. Let's say you could teleport anywhere in the world for 24 hours. Where would you go right now?
Oh, that's easy, Kyoto, Japan. I've always wanted to see the temples, walk through the bamboo forests, and eat real sushi.
That sounds like a dream. I think I'd teleport to Iceland to see the northern lights. I've seen photos, but to witness that in person would be magical.
Iceland is on my list too. Maybe we should make a group trip one day. The English Hour takes Iceland.
I love that idea. We could do an episode from a hot spring with snowy mountains in the background.
Okay, now you're just teasing me. That sounds amazing. Speaking of nature, do you have a favorite memory in the outdoors?
Definitely. I once went on a silent meditation retreat in the mountains. No phones, no talking, just nature and stillness for 3 days.
Wow, that must have been intense.
It was. At first, I hated it. My brain was loud. But by the second day, I started to really feel connected to the trees, the wind, everything. It was like hearing the world breathe.
That's beautifully said. Nature has a way of humbling us and healing us at the same time.
Yes. It reminds us that we're a part of something much bigger.
You know what could be fun? Maybe we can do a little storytelling challenge between us. Like one of us starts a story, and the other has to continue it without planning, just improvise as we go.
Oh, I love that idea. It's perfect for practicing creativity and spontaneous English. All right, I'll start, and then you pick it up wherever I stop. Ready?
Ready, let's hear it.
Once upon a time, in a quiet village nestled between two blue mountains, lived a boy named Theo, who discovered a secret buried in his backyard. It wasn't treasure or bones, it was a glowing, humming stone that pulsed like a heartbeat.
Theo picked it up with shaking hands, and the moment his fingers touched the stone, the world around him flickered. For a second, he saw a different sky, purple, with 3 suns and trees that moved like they were dancing.
Startled, he dropped the stone and it rolled toward the old oak tree at the edge of his garden. The tree had always felt strange to him, like it was watching. As the stone touched its roots, the ground trembled slightly and a voice, deep and ancient, echoed in his mind.
You are the chosen keeper of the gate. Protect the stone. The worlds depend on it. Theo stumbled back, unsure if the voice was real or in his imagination. But when he looked again, the stone had embedded itself in the tree, glowing brighter than ever.
He knew life would never be the same. That night, while his parents slept, Theo packed a bag with water, a flashlight, and his journal. He didn't know what lay ahead, but something told him the tree was the beginning, not the end.
The next morning, when he returned to the oak, there was a path that hadn't been there before, lined with silver leaves and footsteps that didn't belong to him. Someone else had been there. Someone or something was waiting.
That was awesome. I love where you took that. We should definitely build on that story in a future episode. Maybe Theo's adventures can become a regular series on the English Hour.
I'm in. That felt like a mix between fantasy and sci-fi, which I adore. And it's great language practice, too. Speaking of that, should we break down some of the vocabulary we used for our listeners?
That's a great idea. For example, I used the word flickered. That means something appeared or disappeared quickly, or unsteadily, like a candle flame, or a light that's not steady.
Good one. I used embedded, which means something is fixed firmly into a surrounding mass like the stone in the tree trunk. What about trembled?
Trembled means to shake slightly, often from fear, cold, or excitement. We also use the word keeper, which is someone who guards or protects something important.
And pulsed, that's a good one. It means to beat or move in rhythm, like a heartbeat or a glowing light.
This is such a fun way to teach new vocabulary. Listeners, feel free to pause, write these down, or repeat them out loud. Practice makes progress.
Exactly. And if you're learning English, try making your own sentences using these words, like, the light flickered in the dark hallway, or, she trembled when she heard the strange noise.
Perfect examples. Now, shifting gears, let's play a quick round of this or that. I'll ask you to choose between 2 things quickly. No thinking too hard, just instinct. Ready?
Bring it on.
Coffee or tea?
Tea, green tea to be specific.
Morning or night?
Night owl through and through.
Beaches or mountains?
Mountains, I love that fresh, crisp air.
Fiction or non-fiction?
Fiction, gotta have those adventures.
Akita.
Dog's loyal, goofy, and full of love.
Okay, your turn to ask me.
All right, book or movie?
Ooh, book, usually. But I love a good adaptation.
Sweet or salty?
Sweet, I have the worst sweet tooth.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset. There's something magical about that golden hour.
Rainy day or sunny day?
Rainy if I'm indoors with a warm drink.
Same here. Nothing beats the sound of rain tapping the window while you're wrapped in a blanket.
You're speaking my language. Okay, let's open up the conversation. Imagine someone out there listening is feeling unmotivated right now, like they want to improve their English, but they're stuck. What would you say to encourage them?
I'd say, first of all, you're not alone. Everyone hits a wall sometimes in any skill. But that doesn't mean you've failed, it just means you're human. Take a step back, breathe, and try changing your method. Maybe watch a movie with subtitles, listen to podcasts like this one, or even journal in English.
That's such great advice. And I'd add, don't focus too much on perfection. Focus on consistency. Even 10 minutes a day builds up over time. Think of learning English like planting a tree. You don't see results in a day, but with care, it grows strong and tall.
Well said. And use your interests. If you love music, translate your favorite lyrics. If you love food, read recipes in English. Make it fun, and the learning will follow.
That's what the English Hour is all about, making learning feel like a conversation with friends. Speaking of which, let's take a deeper dive into one topic. I know a lot of learners struggle with confidence in speaking.
Oh yes, that's a huge one. I used to freeze up when I had to speak in front of a crowd, and I'm a native speaker, so I totally get how hard it is in another language.
Same here. When I was learning French, I would rehearse every sentence in my head 10 times before saying it, and even then, I'd worry I sounded silly.
I think one trick is to embrace making mistakes. The more you mess up, the more you learn. Mistakes are proof you're trying.
That's so true. I also recommend finding a language buddy. Someone you can practice with without fear of judgment.
Or even talking to yourself in the mirror. I know it sounds weird, but it works. You get used to hearing your own voice in English.
Yes, record yourself, listen back, and celebrate the progress. It's all part of the journey.
And remember, even native speakers don't speak perfectly. We all pause, we all forget words. Fluency isn't perfection, it's flow.
I love that. Fluency is flow. We should put that on a t-shirt.
I'd wear it. Speaking of which, that reminds me we should do a segment where we talk about common idioms and expressions. What do you think?
Great idea, let's dive into that next. Alright, let's dive into idioms and expressions. I love learning them, because they add so much personality to a language. How about we start with some common idioms in English that may be tricky for learners to understand?
Absolutely. Here's one I've always liked. A blessing in disguise. It means something that seems bad at first, but turns out to be good in the end. Have you ever had an experience like that?
Oh, for sure. A few years ago, I was passed over for a job I really wanted, and I was so disappointed. But looking back, I realized that job wasn't the right fit for me. Later, I found something better, and I saw the rejection as a blessing in disguise.
That's a great example. Another one I love is burning the midnight oil. It means staying up late to work or study. Ever had to burn the midnight oil for something important?
Oh, definitely. When I was in college, I spent many late nights studying for exams or finishing projects. It's a phrase that's often used in relation to work or studying hard.
Here's another one. The ball is in your court. It means it's now your responsibility to take action or make a decision. For example, if someone offers you a job, but you haven't accepted it yet, the ball's in your court.
Oh, I love that one. It's such a great way to express responsibility. Here's a fun one. Break the ice. It means to make people feel more comfortable in a social setting, especially when they don't know each other. I remember using that when I was meeting new colleagues at my first job.
Yep, I've definitely been in situations where breaking the ice was necessary. How about this one? Hit the nail on the head. It means to say something that is exactly right or to do something perfectly.
That's a good one. I used it recently when someone gave the perfect solution to a tricky problem. I was like, you really hit the nail on the head with that one.
Here's another idiom that can be fun: under the weather. It means feeling sick or unwell. Have you ever had to say that to someone?
Definitely. I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, is a common way to explain why you're not feeling 100%. It's a polite way of saying you're sick, without going into too much detail.
Right? And I've also heard feeling blue to express when someone is feeling sad. It's a more emotional kind of expression.
Oh yes. Feeling blue is perfect for when you're down in the dumps. It's one of those expressions that adds color to the language literally.
Speaking of colors, here's another one: green with envy. This means being very jealous of someone's success or possessions. Like, if your friend buys a new car and you really want it, you might say, I'm green with envy.
I love how idioms can make language more vibrant. One more that I like is, let the cat out of the bag. It means to reveal a secret, or to accidentally tell something that was supposed to be kept secret.
Oh, I've done that before. Sometimes you can be so excited about something that you accidentally let the cat out of the bag without even realizing it.
Exactly. And then, the trick is to smooth it over and try not to make it awkward, right? But let's shift gears a little and talk about some phrasal verbs that learners often get confused by.
Have phrasal verbs, those are always a challenge because they don't always make sense when you try to translate them literally. What's a phrasal verb that you think is tricky?
Look after is one that's often confusing for learners. It doesn't mean to literally look with your eyes. It means to take care of someone or something. Like, I look after my younger brother when my parents are away.
Ah, that one gets me too. Another tricky one is get by. It means to manage or survive in a difficult situation. Like, it's hard, but I'm getting by with what I have.
That's a good one. And give up is another common phrasal verb. It means to stop trying or quit something. For example, I almost gave up on learning English, but then I decided to push through.
Exactly. And then there's take off, which can mean a plane leaving the ground, but it can also mean something becoming very popular. Like, this podcast is really starting to take off.
Oh, I love that. And one more, bring up, which means to mention or start a topic. Like, I didn't want to bring up the argument we had earlier because I didn't want to make things awkward.
Yes, that's a great one. Honestly, I think learning phrasal verbs can be fun once you start recognizing them in movies, songs, or even conversations. It's like a puzzle.
Absolutely. And if you listen carefully, you'll notice native speakers use them all the time. You can even start using them naturally yourself by practicing with friends or language partners.
For sure. Speaking of that, have you ever heard of language exchange programs where you pair up with someone who wants to learn your native language and you help them while they help you practice?
Yes, I've tried it a few times. It's such a great way to practice real, everyday language. Plus, it's fun to teach someone your culture while learning about theirs. It's a win-win.
And it's a great way to make friends too. Sometimes, I feel like practicing English is easier when you can chat with someone about anything, not just textbooks.
Agreed. The more casual, the better. Speaking of which, let's ask our listeners, what's something fun or casual you've done to practice English recently? Feel free to share with us. You can leave a comment or message us. We'd love to hear from you.
And if you haven't tried a language exchange yet, maybe now's the time to start. You never know who you'll meet and what fun things you'll learn.
That's right. All right, let's get back to idioms for a moment. There's one I think we should discuss next. Call it a day. It means to stop working or end an activity, usually because you've had enough, or you've done enough for that time.
Oh, that one's perfect for our podcast. After a long episode like this, I feel like we'll need to call it a day. Soon.
Haha, I think we're definitely reaching that point. But before we do, how about a final round of some quick fire idioms?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, hit the sack. What does that mean?
To go to bed.
Piece of cake.
Something that's really easy.
bite the bullet.
To do something difficult or unpleasant but necessary.
Cost an arm and a leg.
Something that is very expensive.
The early bird catches the worm.
If you wake up early or start something first, you have an advantage.
Fantastic, and I hope all our listeners are picking up on these idioms and phrasal verbs. They're so useful, and once you start using them, your English will sound more natural and fluent.
That's right, keep practicing, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Each one is just a step toward improving your skills.
Great, let's keep the conversation flowing. So, Jacob, speaking of mistakes, how do you feel about making errors when learning a language? Do you think it's important to embrace them?
Absolutely. In fact, I think making mistakes is one of the best ways to learn. The more mistakes I make, the more I can understand where I need to improve. I used to be really shy about it, but now I see it as a chance to grow.
That's such a healthy mindset. I think a lot of people, especially language learners, fear making mistakes. They think it'll make them look bad. But in reality, it's just a natural part of the process.
Right. And you can learn so much more when you accept that mistakes are part of the journey. Plus, they often lead to funny moments that make the learning process more enjoyable.
Haha, true. I remember when I first started speaking with native speakers, I mixed up some words and caused a few awkward situations. But those moments were hilarious and helped me remember the right words for next time.
Exactly, and sometimes those little slip-ups make the conversation more memorable. I think it's all about being open to learning and not worrying too much about looking perfect.
Well said. And if we're talking about mistakes, it's also important to talk about how to recover from them. Sometimes, we say the wrong word or make a grammatical error. What's your best tip for bouncing back when you make a mistake in conversation?
Oh, that's a good question. One thing I like to do is just acknowledge it, laugh about it, and move on. I'll often say, "Oops, I meant this," and then continue the conversation. It's important not to let a small mistake derail you.
I completely agree. Acknowledging it shows confidence, and moving on quickly keeps the flow of the conversation intact. Plus, it can make both people feel more relaxed.
Right? It's not about being flawless, it's about communicating and connecting. And sometimes, a mistake leads to a funny or interesting exchange. Have you ever had a conversation where a mistake led to something unexpected?
Oh yes, I was once trying to explain a word in English to a friend, and I accidentally said the wrong word that had a completely different meaning. Instead of correcting me, they thought I was trying to be funny, and we ended up laughing for a good while. It actually made me remember the correct word much better.
That's a great story. I've had similar experiences where I tried to explain something and got it wrong, but it turned into a learning moment. Sometimes you can end up teaching your friends something they didn't know too.
Absolutely. It's funny how language can be such a bridge for creating connections, even when you make mistakes. But, on a different note, let's talk about something a little more serious. What's your advice for learners who feel stuck or frustrated with their language progress?
That's a tough one because I know how it feels. But if I had to offer advice, it would be to take a break and come back with a fresh perspective. Sometimes when you're feeling stuck, it helps to step away for a bit and then return with renewed energy. Also, try switching things up. If you're studying grammar, try watching a movie or listening to a podcast in English instead.
That's fantastic advice. I think it's so easy to get burned out if you focus too much on one area. Mixing things up can help keep things interesting and engaging. And also, it's okay to take small breaks. The progress will come over time.
Exactly, small steps add up. Another tip I'd suggest is to set manageable goals. Instead of trying to become fluent in 1 month, aim to learn 5 new words a week or improve your listening for 30 minutes every day. That way, you can track your progress and feel a sense of achievement along the way.
That's a solid approach. Setting realistic goals helps you stay motivated. Plus, it makes the learning process feel more rewarding. And it's easier to see your improvements when you break things down into smaller chunks.
And don't forget to celebrate the little wins. Whether it's understanding a joke in English, completing a chapter of a textbook, or having a conversation without worrying about mistakes, those are all achievements to be proud of.
I love that. Celebrating those small victories can keep you going when the journey feels long. It's important to remember that every step forward counts.
Absolutely. So, what do you think is the most important skill to focus on when learning a language? Is it speaking, listening, reading, or writing?
That's a tough one because each skill is important in its own way. But if I had to choose, I'd say speaking is crucial. It helps you build confidence and test your knowledge in real time. But listening also plays a huge role because it helps you understand how the language is used in context, and you can learn new vocabulary and expressions.
I totally agree. Speaking is important because it's what allows you to communicate with others. But listening is like the foundation. It helps you understand everything around you, whether it's conversations or media, which in turn improves your speaking skills.
Right? It's like the two skills feed into each other. And you can't really be good at speaking if you don't understand what's being said. It's a balance between them, really.
Definitely. And reading and writing are just as important. Reading expands your vocabulary and exposes you to sentence structures and grammar. Writing helps reinforce what you've learned and allows you to express yourself clearly.
Exactly. They all come together to create a full picture of language learning. I think the key is to make sure you're practicing all of them, even if it's just a little bit every day.
That's the secret, right? Consistency is key. Even if you can only practice for 10 minutes a day, that's still progress.
Yes, exactly. And if you enjoy what you're doing, whether it's watching movies in English, listening to podcasts, or reading articles, then it won't feel like work. And you'll be learning without even realizing it.
That's the dream, right? Making learning fun.
Well, it looks like we've covered a lot of ground today. From idioms to language learning tips, we've had quite the journey.
Absolutely. It's been a great conversation, and I hope everyone listening has picked up a few tips and tricks to improve their English.
Same here. Remember, language learning is a process, and every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. Keep at it. So, Jacob, before we dive even deeper into language learning, let's shift gears a bit. How about we talk about some of the funniest or most embarrassing language moments you've experienced? I think those stories are always fun and relatable.
Haha. Oh boy. I have quite a few of those. One that comes to mind is when I was visiting an English speaking country for the first time, and I wanted to ask someone for directions. I tried to say, "Where is the nearest pharmacy?" But I accidentally said, "Where is the nearest family?" I didn't realize what I had said until the person looked at me, kind of puzzled, and said, "Are you looking for a pharmacy or a family?" It was so embarrassing.
Haha, that's a good one. I can only imagine how confused the person must have been. But it's those little moments that help you remember the right word, right?
Exactly, I'll never forget the word pharmacy after that. It's funny how you can learn from such embarrassing moments.
Definitely, I've had my fair share of similar experiences. One time, I was trying to ask a friend for some advice, but I accidentally used the word advise instead, thinking they meant the same thing. Of course, they looked at me weirdly for a second, and then we both laughed about it. It's moments like those that make learning a language feel like an adventure.
That's a great example. Language can be tricky, especially with words that seem similar but have different meanings. But hey, if you don't laugh about it, it can make things more stressful than they need to be.
Absolutely. Language should be fun, and a good sense of humor definitely makes the journey more enjoyable. But speaking of adventure, have you ever had a situation where language actually helped you connect with someone in a way you didn't expect?
That's a great question. Actually, yes, I was traveling once, and I didn't speak the local language fluently, but I was able to communicate enough to help a local person who was in trouble. They were struggling to find a specific address, and I recognized it from a map I had seen earlier. Even though my language skills weren't perfect, Being able to help them made me feel so connected to that place and those people.
That's such a heartwarming story. I think that's the beauty of language beyond just learning the words. It's about how it helps us connect with others, share experiences, and even make a positive impact on someone's day.
Yeah, exactly. It made me realize that language is more than just vocabulary and grammar. It's about the connection it creates between people, even when there are mistakes along the way. Those moments are what truly make language learning so rewarding.
That's beautifully said. It's those moments of connection that remind us why we're learning in the first place. It's not just about speaking perfectly, it's about using language to build bridges.
Absolutely. And I think when you focus on the connections rather than perfection, it takes away a lot of the pressure and makes the whole process a lot more enjoyable.
I couldn't agree more. So, let's talk about something that ties into that idea. For learners out there who might be feeling overwhelmed or discouraged, how can they keep themselves motivated?
I get it. There are definitely times when I've felt discouraged too. But one thing that helped me was keeping a language journal. I wrote down new words, phrases, and sentences that I learned, and over time, I'd look back and see how much I'd improved. It helped me stay motivated and reminded me of how far I'd come.
That's such a great idea. A language journal can serve as both a record of your progress and a source of motivation. Plus, it's a fun way to see the little improvements that might otherwise go unnoticed.
Exactly, and another tip is to surround yourself with the language as much as possible. Listen to music, watch TV shows, read books, and even try to think in the language. The more you immerse yourself, the more naturally the words and phrases will come to you.
Immersion is key, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. You can start small, maybe watch an episode of a show in English, or listen to a song while doing something else. It all adds up over time.
Exactly, and remember, it's okay to start slow. Progress is progress, no matter how small. The key is consistency.
Absolutely, and you don't have to do everything at once. It's about making language learning a part of your everyday routine. Whether it's 5 minutes of reading, listening to a podcast while cooking, or chatting with a friend, every little bit helps.
And one more thing, don't compare your progress to others. Everyone learns at their own pace. Some people might pick up a language faster, and others might take more time. What matters is that you're making progress at your own pace.
That's a powerful reminder. It's easy to get caught up in comparisons, especially with social media showing people's perfect language skills. But the reality is, everyone's journey is different, and we should be proud of our own progress.
Exactly, we're all on different paths, but as long as we keep going, we'll get there. And sometimes the small victories are the ones that matter most.
Well said. So, before we wrap up this conversation, or continue if you want, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting their language learning journey?
I'd say, don't worry about being perfect right away. It's okay to make mistakes. The most important thing is to be consistent, stay curious, and enjoy the process. Celebrate every little achievement along the way.
Great advice, Jacob. Language learning is all about persistence, patience, and having fun along the way. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today.
It's been a blast. Thanks for having me on the show. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Same here. And to everyone listening, remember to keep practicing, keep exploring, and most importantly, enjoy the journey of learning. All right, Jacob, let's dive a bit deeper into the idea of language barriers. Many learners struggle with the fear of making mistakes, especially in real life conversations. Have you ever faced a language barrier like that? And how did you deal with it?
Oh, definitely. I think one of the biggest challenges I've faced was during a trip to a non-English speaking country. I was trying to ask for directions, but my accent was so strong that the local people couldn't understand me at first. It was frustrating, but I didn't let it stop me. I tried to remain calm, and eventually I found a way to communicate by using gestures and simple words. It reminded me that language isn't just about pronunciation, it's about making an effort and finding ways to connect.
That's such a great example. Sometimes, it's the non-verbal communication that helps us break through those barriers. And it's really common for language learners to feel like they're not saying things correctly. But the important thing is that you're trying. Every mistake is a step closer to improvement.
Exactly. And sometimes the person you're speaking to will be more understanding than you think. I've found that most people appreciate the effort to speak their language, even if it's not perfect. They're usually very patient and willing to help you figure things out.
That's true, and it's amazing how much empathy people have when they see you making the effort. So, Jacob, let's talk a bit about how to build confidence while speaking. Any tips on overcoming the fear of speaking in a foreign language?
That's a big one. I think the first thing to remember is that everyone makes mistakes, and that's okay. The more you practice, the more comfortable you get. One thing that helped me was practicing with friends or language partners who were supportive and didn't judge. Speaking with someone who is patient can really build your confidence.
Yes, having a supportive community is key. I know it can be intimidating at first. But speaking regularly, even if it's just a few minutes a day, can help you get past that fear. And the best part is, the more you speak, the more confident you become. It's like a muscle, you have to use it to make it stronger.
Exactly. And I also recommend setting small goals for yourself. Start with simple conversations like introducing yourself or ordering food at a restaurant. Once you accomplish those small tasks, you'll feel more confident tackling bigger challenges.
That's such a great strategy. Building confidence one small step at a time is definitely the way to go. So, how about listening? We've talked a lot about speaking, but listening comprehension is just as important. Any strategies for improving listening skills?
Absolutely. Listening is often more challenging than speaking because you don't have the luxury of thinking about what you're going to say next. One thing I did was listen to podcasts or watch TV shows in the target language without subtitles. At first, it's difficult, but over time, you start picking up more words and phrases, and your brain begins to process the language faster.
That's a great technique. Immersion really is the best way to improve listening skills. Another thing I've found helpful is to repeat what I hear. For example, if I'm listening to a podcast and I hear a sentence I don't understand, I'll rewind and listen again, trying to understand the meaning from the context. It's a great way to reinforce what you've learned.
Yes, repetition is key, and don't be afraid to pause and look up words you don't know. Over time, you'll start recognizing those words in different contexts, which will make your listening skills even stronger.
It's all about consistency and making those small improvements every day. Even if you only pick up a few new words or phrases each time, it adds up.
And it's important to enjoy the process. Sometimes listening can feel like you're not understanding anything at all, but as you continue practicing, you'll realize that you're actually absorbing more than you think. It just takes time.
That's such a good point. Patience is key in language learning. The process might feel slow, but every little bit you learn is progress.
Absolutely, and I think it's important to celebrate those small victories. For instance, when you're able to understand a sentence or a phrase without having to look it up, that's a big achievement. Those moments are what keep you motivated.
You're so right. Language learning isn't a race, it's about enjoying the journey and celebrating each milestone along the way. And the more you enjoy the process, the more naturally the language will come to you.
Yeah, it's all about enjoying the ride. When you stop focusing on the pressure to be perfect and just have fun with it, that's when the real progress happens.
I couldn't agree more. So, Jacob, as we wrap up this part of our conversation, what's one final piece of advice you would give to anyone who's struggling with language learning?
I'd say, don't be too hard on yourself. Every learner has their own pace, and mistakes are part of the process. Just keep practicing, stay curious, and remember that it's okay to take breaks and come back refreshed. Language learning is a journey, and you'll get there eventually.
Beautifully said. Jacob, that's such great advice for anyone starting or continuing their language learning journey. You've shared so many valuable insights today. And with that, we come to the end of today's episode. Jacob, thank you so much for sharing all your tips, stories, and insights with us. It's been an amazing conversation, and I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot.
It's been a pleasure, Sophia. I had so much fun, and I hope the listeners found something helpful in our chat today.
I'm sure they did. And to everyone listening, remember that language learning is a journey. Keep practicing, stay positive, and enjoy the process. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you grow.
Exactly, keep going, and you'll see the progress. You've got this.
Thank you all for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode of the English Hour. Keep learning, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.